FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. This is Kerry Lutz. Today is January 29th, 2018. Hard to believe the year is almost 8.5% over. Time moves quickly. Time waits for no man, waits for no country. Hey, what about what happened at Davos? Was that an eye-opener, a surprise, or what? What's happening with the tax bill? The benefits flowing forth immensely, nonstop. Every day you hear about something else. Another company giving out bonuses, reinvesting in their facilities, redeploying assets to the United States. Well, hey, as always, be part of the show. Write us an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. So is Trump on the right track? Is he going to really make America great again? Well, we've got on with us now a gentleman from Coalition for a Prosperous America. You find him at prosperousamerica.org. I'm talking about Michael Stumo, who is the CEO. Michael, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here.
So, Michael, what you just wrote a piece on the editorial page of USA Today, largest dead tree paper still remaining in the United States. What's your take on Davos, and what's your take on what's happening with trade now in America?
Well, this is a big month for Trump on trade. He's just released a couple of decisions to counter Chinese and Korean subsidies on clothes washers and solar panels with tariffs against them to neutralize those countries' subsidies that were taking out our industry, Whirlpool and clothes washers, and Suniva and Solar World for solar, the American-based manufacturers that were getting crushed by Chinese and Korean subsidies. In Davos, it was, of course, as the press portrayed, an interesting setup because you have an economic nationalist going into the haven of the globalists and, brought his whole team. I mean, a lot of his cabinet. It was pretty amazing. And Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce, performed well, basically saying that, look, this is not, what we're doing isn't creating a trade war. We're responding to a trade war inflicted on us. Those were pretty strong comments by Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross.
Yeah, I would say that's very strong comments. He was unrelenting throughout his remarks to the conference, and he was unapologetic as well, wasn't he?
He was, and he was a good deliverer of that message because, he is kind of Wall Street himself. But in his Wall Street career, he's invested in a lot of manufacturing companies, and that's part of what made his money. So he gets manufacturing, he gets the plight of workers, but he also understands the Wall Street talk. In fact, we have some Wall Street people on our advisory board who are with us on, the need for a strategic trade in the U.S., not this free trade fiction. And they say that Wilbur Ross is sort of senior royalty on Wall Street.
Yeah, well, he's made billions. A lot of times he's been considered to be a corporate raider, if you will.
Yes.
But now he's seen religion here. He's gotten religion, hasn't he?
Well, his client now is the United States, and that seems to have made a difference than when his client was his own bank account. So far, I like what he's saying. It could have gone the other way, but I really like what he's saying. In fact, I wrote, as you know, the opposing view in USA Today, which you mentioned before. USA Today was criticizing Trump going to Davos for his, views on trade. They invited me to provide the opposing view, which they tend to do for their editorials. Mm-hmm. And I did so, and did get a nice thank you note from the Secretary as well, Ross.
Okay, and so our trade situation, are you optimistic now what's going to happen after the tax cut, after all these companies repatriating profits, which if you've listened to the show, you know that is not exactly shall we say, accurate, because really the profits are here.
Right.
They're in because American companies are not leaving their money in European bank accounts, if it were, as it were, right? I mean, they're bringing it back.
It's a tax technicality what repatriation means, but in reality, the money is here anyway.
Yeah, it's in T-bills, or it's in Apple sets up Apple Ireland bank account, right? I mean, that's what they do. So it's a bit of a misnomer to say that the profits are being repatriated. But in terms of freeing up, I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, it's not so much that the tax bill has led to all this reinvestment, right? It's really a matter of the tone and the business environment in the country, doing a 360, if you will, right? Or a 180, I should say, not a 360.
Yeah,
that's a circle.
Right. No, that's important. We have a lot of members. Of course, I have members that are Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans love it. The Democrats, have criticized the bill for all the reasons you've heard. But, we're seeing some hiring. We're seeing, some bonuses. We're not going to know for another year if those are exceptions to the rule or the rule, but it certainly seems to be making a difference. We have the stock market go up, which, I have some money in stocks, but my big income is wage income, right? As most of us is wage income. So that's what matters most to us. But growth was strong. I mean, consumer confidence is high. Everything looks, really good. And, so it looks like it's going to help make a difference, as you say, in the attitude of things, because the actual rules of the tax bill haven't even been written and implemented. That'll be 12 months from now. So we'll see, what happens. There are some improvements. We still allow, we still do some things to allow foreign multinationals doing business here to avoid taxes in a way that U.S. companies can't. We're hoping they'll fix that. But overall, it's a good deal.
And also, the foreign companies can avoid taxes, but now the American companies will be able to avoid taxes on their foreign profits. They're only going to be taxed where the profits are earned. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it is unclear. Actually, my research director was at a conference last week where they're trying to explain what the heck does this tax bill mean. And anyone who says they know is largely wrong, at least in many ways, because even the staffers for the committees of Ways and Means and Finance who drafted the bill aren't sure what it means, and the IRS has to write rules. But certainly before, companies were able to offshore their income and avoid U.S. tax by declaring that they made income overseas. Now, this bill made some attempts to make that harder to do. It remains to be seen whether that will work. And we do know that, multinationals from Germany and China can have no change. They can strip their profits before they get here and totally avoid tax, where U.S. multinationals have a harder time. So it's a long way of saying we're not sure yet.
Yeah, well, obviously there's a bit of uncertainty, but the policies as expressed in the tax bill are generally favorable to U.S. companies, multinationals doing business both here and abroad, correct?
Yes, that's right. And for the companies that benefit, the next step is, Trump's trade efforts, because if those companies grow here and respond by buying more Chinese or foreign imports rather than U.S. producers in their supply chains, it won't be as good as it could be. But in general, right now, I think we'll see a 1 or 2 year bump from it. Then it'll all sort of be baked into our economy again, and then we'll see what happens thereafter.
Yeah. Well. But the overall the overall effect of the tax bill also encouraging foreign companies to invest in America as well. I mean, that's right. What Trump's his speech at Davos was all about. And the speech was amazingly well received, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Trump is portrayed in, BBC World Service, all the international media, The Guardian, and of course, U.S. papers as, unhinged. I was actually on BBC World Service 10 days ago on this issue. And so that's the news that they get. And to see a team of cabinet members and the president that are interested in investment and engaging in the world, but on our terms, I think was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, it really was. He's got this reputation, and yet when Soros made so many anti-Trump comments, he was greeted kind of with stunned silence and indifference. And here we look, Trump really took Davos by storm. Now, didn't Davos used to be called the Bilderberger Conference?
Oh, it may have. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Bilderberg group, of which all these elites were really, pretty much anti-American, internationalist, globalist people. And, it used to be, I thought that Davos was part of that or as an offshoot, but hey, correct me if I'm wrong. And if any of you out there know the answer, I'll do research it. But the Bilderbergs, it's basically a subset of the people appearing in Davos.
Right. And, it's a little unfortunate that Davos gets so much press. I mean, it's a place where millionaires explain to billionaires what the middle class needs, right? And
like they care.
And yeah, right. Well, they pretend to care, and then they pretend that their prescription of just, their version of crony capitalism is making them rich, and therefore it's making everybody else rich, where it's really not. We have, income insecurity and inequality that exceeds, for a long time because of all their cross-border, behavior and, what they're doing with the financial industry. So, but it did get it did get, a lot of press and it is what it is.
So, the whole thing like going against Samsung for appliances, perhaps you listening might not be aware, but China purchased the appliance business of GE and under the Haier brand name, which was they purchased from somebody else. That's an old line appliance manufacturer. So really, when they put the tariffs on against the South Korean manufacturers, it's really favoring the Chinese, isn't it?
Well, it is tariffs on what's underlying. I mean, Whirlpool's going to be helped. It's unfortunate that the tariffs are going to go away in a few years, that they're not more permanent in this way, because I'm not entirely sure the dynamics with China's GE, though the dynamics with China are much clearer in the Trump solar tariffs, right? Where he imposed tariffs against solar mostly, which was Chinese. But Korea had subsidized, Korea grew from a poor country in the 60s to a rich country now through an industrial policy, which included a lot of subsidization of their national champion industries. And part of them took out part of U.S. industries. And so Obama imposed tariffs on Samsung and LG in 2011. People don't realize that. On washers from Korea and Mexico. But then LG and Samsung started moving their production around to other countries. So in 2013, Obama imposed other tariffs, or the administration, the International Trade Commission, tariffs again on those clothes washers coming in from China, because they did shift production to China and elsewhere. So they're moving around trying to avoid the tariffs that are countering the government subsidies. And this year they did, okay, we're going to do a tariff on. We're not playing whack-a-mole, country by country whack-a-mole anymore. We're doing it from around the world, because the other two times didn't work because they were dedicated to cheating and evading the remedy. And that's, in fact, people don't know. They say, oh, Trump is, anti-trade and the tariffs and it's going to hurt consumers. Obama already did it. Similarly, in solar, when Trump imposed tariffs on solar panels coming from China, people are freaking out. But Obama did it twice in the same way during his administration, and they kept moving production around to other countries that weren't tariffed to evade those tariffs against, this is Chinese state-owned industries like the Department of Defense and the Post Office. They're not subject to market competition. They will succeed. They will produce. That's what happens. It's unlimited subsidies. So Trump is just continuing what Obama did. I wish he would have been stronger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a start. He hasn't done it before. Perhaps he's concerned about potential litigation. wants to establish the precedent, and then he'll move ahead. And maybe by making them an example, other companies will respond in a favorable way.
Right. There is a deterrent effect, and there are some other investigations going on in the administration, like a 301, what's called a Section 301 investigations under a statute from the 60s on IP theft by China. We could see some more. In other words, they steal, as we know, they hack and steal commercial secrets from including SolarWorld, the solar company that's based here. And other companies. And we could see further remedies on top of it after that. That's a really big case that people aren't following that much, but We'll hear about it soon.
Yeah, that was at the behest of Wilbur Ross as well, and as head of the Commerce Department, that investigation. And we know that China does it by forcing companies to disclose all their trade secrets in order to invest, or they force a company, a U.S. or European company. The Europeans are hit by this just as much or more as the U.S. They force those companies in order to open up a factory that they have to take on a local partner, and that partner proceeds to steal all their trade secrets.
That's right. And they can also steal trade secrets from Beijing without a relationship. But there are, as you say, all those methods of doing it. And the U.S. isn't the only ones fighting back. There's a bill that is being debated now, highly likely to pass. It's going to restrict Chinese purchases of strategic companies in the U.S. that have a national security aspect risk to that purchase. And the Wall Street community is freaking out that we're going to be restricting investments. When we sell them our, strategic defense technology companies and the like, which, this law will tighten up on what China can buy. But this is a global phenomenon. Australia is restricting what China can do in their country because they're doing the same thing there. Germany is. There's other countries that already have more restrictive laws than we do on Chinese and other country investment, like Canada, for example. So we're just catching up.
Yeah. And that kind of goes along with immigration as well, by only taking people who can make a contribution, who won't be potential welfare or benefit recipients, right? It's kind of along those lines. This is a policy that crosses a lot of different initiatives, departments within the U.S.
Well, that's right. And one common thread people don't often talk about is this mismanaged globalization. And I say mismanaged globalization because, there's going to be more connectivity over time and transportation and that sort of thing. But to allow this unfettered free trade that has wiped out the industrial states and the flyover country in the U.S. And so that they said, the heck with it, we're going to vote for Trump because he's a change agent. That happened in Britain with the Brexit. Manchester, England, and Sheffield, England voted differently than London, right? Mm-hmm. And voted. But my point is, NAFTA caused our immigration from Mexico in large part because the waves of multinationals took out a lot of local agriculture and business in Mexico, threw millions of people out of work in the rural and the non-urban areas. They couldn't find another job, and they started migrating north. It was very destabilizing for them. So NAFTA had a substantial part in causing Mexican immigration here.
Yeah, little known thing. Just like Obamacare helped fuel the opioid crisis epidemic, if you will. Everything's connected is the point, not signaling or picking out policies might not necessarily be in favor of, but just that there's always, unintended consequences of every government policy.
Right. So Trump is being aggressive in picking his intervention points, and we'll see if we leave NAFTA. But it would be a start. Leaving NAFTA itself would probably be, it would probably be a little bit of a help, but it would be a start in really taking control of this, free trade agreement mistake, and just start focusing on rebuilding our country.
And
would be a good step.
You raise a really good point here. So that the whole trade thing. And NAFTA, the actual possibility that the U.S. will just cancel the agreement and just leave. That's got the Canadians and the Mexicans freaked out, doesn't it?
Yeah, for Canada, they shouldn't really care that much. Mexico, we'll see. But Mexico's got to focus on getting its own country in order. They are ridden with corruption. They're a drug state. And whether NAFTA is there or not, they've got those problems they've got to figure out how to solve. And they haven't in the last 25 or 7 years. We'd be better off if they did, but that's what they've got to focus on.
Yeah, well, it's kind of coming apart at the seams with the cartels and all that. But that's like another result of policies in the U.S., which we won't get into what's going on with the drug war, but a lot of it has to do with with U.S. policies here. Let's face it, right?
Right. If our multinational agriculture community didn't take out their rural areas, they would have viable rural communities and small Mexican towns that were producing, were buying, seed and chemical and the like, and local economies that still worked. And NAFTA disrupted that, and so they migrated north or to Mexico City, where they similarly don't know what to do with all the migrants coming in from the rural areas. The job of the U.S. is to create a viable job-creating economy here, but that's Mexico's job too, and that's other countries' job. But they got to focus on getting it right there. And this whole free trade agreement era was a mistake. It was disruptive. The Trump administration came out 2 weeks ago, and said, astoundingly, and we didn't hear much of the press. Astoundingly, they said letting China into the WTO was a mistake in 2000. It was a mistake.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody disagrees with that, do they?
Outside of Manhattan, maybe not. Probably not.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we've got a situation here where policies were implemented that were definitely deleterious to the U.S. and to you who work in manufacturing. Let's face it. And now they've got to fix it, right?
Right. And the thing about the manufacturing is it's not just people who work in manufacturing, but because manufacturing pulls in so much revenue from making things and value add. When you have manufacturing in a community, the regional wage level is higher for everybody, whether you're in it or out. Mm-hmm. If you take the manufacturing out, the whole regional wage level plummets. So everyone suffers. There's more people out of work. The wage level's down. So everyone makes less money or doesn't increase their wages year to year like they did. That's pretty much documented fact. And that's why Germany, Japan, South Korea, and China focus on manufacturing, because they've been very successful increasing the wage levels of their citizens. We have not. And so the point is, it's not just whether you're in manufacturing or not. It is a substantial part of a good, healthy economic ecosystem, which we can't give up.
Right. Yeah, it really is. Well, hey, Michael, so best place to find you again, just give the website.
Sure, prosperousamerica.org. Go there, sign up to get info. We've got to give the reformists on strategic trade some space to work against the attacks from the free traders. So keep informed.
All right. Hey, and check us out, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for a free newsletter, and the email for any comments, questions is kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feeds @KerryLutz. Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Michael, it's always great to have you on. Keep up the great work.
Pleasure to be here.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.